And Ray, thanks for joining us here at SkyBridge.
Great. Thanks for being out here.
Well, of course, the markets, it's a huge story of the day, the week, the month, you name it. Let's get your take on what is going on. What are you looking at? What's on your radar right now?
Great. I mean, I think, you look at the volatility that's being induced by, I'll call it the fear and panic around the coronavirus story. I think deep down, we think we get through this. It may take several weeks. I think the worst is still yet to come from the reaction, the implications for financial markets, the economy more broadly. You see things getting canceled, supply chains getting disrupted, and that's going to have an impact. I do think it bounces back. We're dealing a little bit with perception versus reality right now, and I think the perception is a lot worse than the reality. But you get in a negative feedback loop, and just like fear can embrace markets, it's embracing this virus that's running around and having an impact on markets. We're staying fairly, I think, isolated from that, how we're currently positioned. We have very little equity beta risk in the portfolios. February was a pretty good month for us. We actually were positive in most of our funds for the month. Not a lot, but positive in the months. And I think, the right positioning, you can preserve value in here.
And I'm sure people also, they are looking for where to put their capital. And for folks who don't know, SkyBridge is a fund of funds, and you all allocate to hedge funds. Are you getting more client calls? What are your clients saying? What are they asking you? What are these conversations like?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear out there, and so we're trying to help clients work through that, and again explain and re-educate them on the rationale for using a lot of the hedge fund strategies that exist. And this is really a great market environment for them. The last couple of years it's been tough with equities melting up. People haven't been kind of that interested in the space. They've been looking elsewhere. All of a sudden they're refocusing on what it is we can do and we can deliver, whether that's long volatility strategies, whether it's short duration strategies. I'll call it non-traditional market driven strategies, which is really what hedge fund investing is all about. I've often said to people, you don't need to pay higher fees to get equity market beta. What you need to do is, use these strategies to give you non-correlated or low-correlated return series.
Because that's been the issue and the challenge for the last decade or so with hedge funds, was everything got correlated. Are you talking about maybe a resurgence in hedge funds, or is that what you're kind of seeing early stages?
It could be early stages. I think it's also important to recognize not all hedge funds are created equal, and that a lot of them do have a long equity bias to them, and this is not the time to be invested in those types of funds. Long vol strategies are interesting now. Macro and trading strategies are interested now. If you're a good trader, you can capitalize on this type of volatility. If you look at the magnitude of the moves that we're seeing, whether it's in individual names or markets, and you can trade that, you can put up some pretty nice returns and take advantage of that. If you're a long biased equity fund, even though you may have some shorts on, you're probably not going to do that well in this environment.
Yeah, definitely not. I want to ask you about what you're talking to with the hedge fund managers. We mentioned clients earlier, but also there's a hedge fund component to this, and you all talk to managers. What are you hearing from the folks that you're talking to on the street?
Generally it's been pretty... I would say they feel generally pretty good about the environment they're in the strategies that we're operating in. So again, I'll go back to if you're a convert manager, if you're a long volatility manager, if you're a macro manager, you're seeing some pretty good things happening for you. If you're in an event-driven equity fund, or you're a equity long-short manager, you're definitely feeling some pain now. It's a little more difficult to kind of orchestrate in those marketplaces. So again, I come back to not all strategies are equal, and you need to pick the right spots. And here at SkyBridge, that's really what we view a big part of our role is to help identify which strategies and sectors to be in at any given point in a market cycle.
Well, it's a story that we'll certainly be watching. Ray Nolte, Co-CIO of SkyBridge Capital, thank you so much for having us here on the 15th anniversary.
Great.
Zach, back to you.
All right. I don't know if Ray can hear me still, or if he's still able to stick around, because I just do want to ask one more question about what might happen in terms of what you're seeing play out. Everyone's curious about finding a bottom here, and it seems like all the economic indicators right now are kind of thrown out the window. So not sure what you've been watching as a signal here, waiting to say, okay, definitively we've hit bottom.
Yeah, I don't think we've hit bottom yet. I think you're not going to be able to know that probably for another, I'll call it a good week to 3 weeks. I think we need to see just how large the outbreaks become. I suspect there's a lot more cases out there that we don't know about yet. I think the spread is probably ongoing, and it's going to be when do we hit that crescendo? And just like you have markets going through very large sell-offs, as you kind of hit a kind of a max point in terms of infection, then people will start to think the worst is over, it's playing out its cycle, and markets will probably bottom a little bit in front of that. But I think the volatility we've seen in the last 2 weeks, I expect to see for the next several weeks.
All right, there you go. Ray Nolte and Julie LaRoche, thank you guys so much for joining us. Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.